Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Omega Revolution. We have had a little bit of technical difficulties here tonight, and but now we are ready to proceed. And so we're very fortunate to have a special guest on tonight. And to get started with, I just wanted to share with everybody that, we've been talking about this for a while, where we are literally on the cutting edge of a health revolution, and chronic diseases, especially those that are preventable through lifestyle changes, are the epidemic of our generation. People desperately need guidance to find their way back to health. And the human microbiome is a hot topic right now for a very, very good reason. And we have Colleen Morrison, and she's an RN and a lactation specialist, as well as a spinal flow practitioner. We have received many questions from listeners in response to this interview that we currently had a few months ago. And she is back to teach us all more about this important topic. She'll be sharing her expert knowledge from newborns to elderly people and everything in between, so that we can try to understand this complex topic a little bit better. So Colleen joins us this evening from Melbourne, Australia, where it's already Friday afternoon there. And so thank you so much for joining us today, Colleen.
It's a pleasure, Debbie and Gail and Rayleigh. It's a pleasure to be with you girls. I just love what you do. You're bringing so much good information to so many people. So I'm just really happy to be part of it. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Rayleigh, is there anything that you would like to start off the conversation with this evening?
Just basically the fact that we're getting sicker as a species. We're not getting more well. And as a wellness professional, this is such a concern. I'm just so concerned about the food that we're eating, our choices at the supermarket, and the fact that our lifestyles just become so busy that we very few people are like you, Deb, who are completely grow their own veggies and that sort of thing, which is what we once did like 80 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we're just so busy now, we even do an online shop. We don't even go in and select our own food at the supermarket.
That's very true. I have not done that yet. I can honestly say I still go pick up my own veggies. I guess maybe I'm a little anal about that part of my groceries, and I haven't done that yet. Obviously we're going to be going into our summer season here or spring and summer here in Canada. And so definitely we're going to be starting to grow our gardens for those of us that can. So just to get started here a little bit, Colleen, what exactly is the human microbiome?
Well, the human microbiome is not present at birth. We're actually, it's a sterile environment at birth. And as the birthing process comes through, like as we come through the vagina, or if we drink breast milk, then we actually pick up certain bacteria from our mothers, usually first, and sometimes from our fathers, off their skin. But the human microbiome consists of fungi, protozoa, viruses, bacteria, and they all live in a symbiotic relationship with our body. So we need them as much as they need us, but we just have so much more of them than we do of our own cells. So we have about 80 trillion cells in our body, and we have 10 times the amount of little fungi, bacteria, viruses, protozoa in our gut. So those bacteria and they work together synergistically to protect us from any foreign viruses or bacteria that come into our body. So they work as a team.
They do. So that's some of the benefits of maintaining that healthy microbiome. So what would some of the symptoms of a biome deficiency be? And I know that's a pretty generic response.
Yeah. Deb, about 40% of the adult population, and I'm speaking from all OECD countries like Canada, America, Australia, and European countries as well, 40% of the adult population has some sort of dysbiosis of their bowel. And So that could be irritable bowel syndrome, or more progressively, irritable bowel disease, which affects nutrient uptake. 80% of our immune system comes from our gut. Our brain and gut are connected very through the vagus nerve, so they're directly connected. So a lot of mental health issues come through with the gut being deficient. And because of the world, the way it's been with this pandemic, we've had a tenfold rise in anxiety and depression amongst the population. And the really sad thing is it's affecting really tiny little kids. And if they get anxiety and depression as little ones, there's a good chance it's just going to carry through into their adolescent years, which is the real danger that now we're going to be facing in the next little while.
Right.
And so chronic illness, people with chronic illness, a lot of that comes from their gut. If they have chronic inflammation or chronic infections, they're sort of some of the symptoms that we have from a deficient microbiome.
So do you think deficiencies are caused by genetics, by the environment, or both?
I think it's a big combination of a lot of things. I think if we wind the clock right back to the birth choices of that we are trending towards in modern countries, like we're trending towards much more inductions because doctors are protecting themselves, basically. So they induce women when women are not ready to birth their babies. They force these babies out, which often result in a cesarean, which then bypasses the seeding process. So when a baby's born, there's about 400 different species of microbiome organisms come from the vagina. And if they have a Caesar, they actually miss out on even getting those. And they're the ones that start off the gut microbiome. But luckily, if that baby's lucky enough to be breastfed, just before a woman delivers her baby or births her baby, certain microbiota gather in the breasts. So there's some of the first seeding ways that the baby's gut can be seeded. And that's really important.
That's such an interesting problem, because I don't know what the ratio is in Australia, but the ratio here in Canada for cesareans is astronomical. Like, it really is going up and up and up. And what I'm seeing is exactly what you're saying, right? Like, you're 7 days late, so we're going to induce at this date if babe doesn't come. And then, babe was induced, babe didn't show up. We've encountered a problem. Now we have to section. And then the next problem with that is that hormones weren't correct. We sectioned her, she's struggling nursing, and then off we go.
It's a cascade of events. And it's so sad that, like, our bodies are amazing. And our bodies know when it's time to birth the baby. And you hear that so many times, that women have been bullied into it by an obstetrician. And that just makes me quite cross as a midwife. So you have to be louder than that obstetrician and really advocate for women. But I see in my workplace, midwives are scared of them, which really, I don't work in birthing suite anymore. I sort of tend to concentrate my time as a lactation consultant now. So I tend to work in special care nursery with really fragile little babies and mums. But yeah, if I was a birthing midwife, I think I'd be quite militant.
I love it.
You fit in great with us over here then. I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to look at the PDF that I had sent you or not, Colleen, with the 3 blood works. Did you have a chance to look at that?
I just glanced at it just 5 minutes ago.
Okay, no, I'm just, if you're willing to just randomly talk about that, I will actually pull it up on the screen. So just to give a little background, and this will be my question, do you think it's possible for a person's biome to be deficient for generations? Okay, and so as we start talking about that, I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. So what I have here is recently we tested a 51-year-old female. She came in at 23.3 to 1 in her omega-6 to 3 ratio. And as we scroll down here, I just want to show you what her omega-3s actually were at. So she's at minus 89.2 in her EPA and minus 71.9 in her DHA. And we know how important the EPA and the DHA are, especially the DHA that the baby needs from the mom. So then we actually tested that 51-year-old's daughter, who's now a 28-year-old female, and she came back at 26.8 to 1 in her omega-6 to 3 ratio. Her EPA is at minus 90.8% deficient, and her DHA is minus 74.7% deficient. So then that 24-year-old female has a 6-year-old son. His omega-6 to 3 ratio is 71.3 to 1.
Can't believe this.
His EPA is minus 96.1 and his DHA is minus 71.3.
Well, my question is, what are
Go
they
ahead.
feeding this child?
Yes.
What in the hell? That's what I think about that.
So I think you're right, Colleen, like asking about the genetics of this. Like I tend to cook the way my mom cooks. I shop the way my mom shops. She shops and cooks the way her mom did. They shop and cook. Like, so there is undoubtedly like an intergenerational and genetic component there. It's shocking.
And that's lifestyle too. Children only learn what's modeled to them, really. And so if you're not modeling eating wild caught fish 4 times a week, you're going to end up with EPA that's so deficient. Like he's basically got none.
And that's just it. In speaking with the mother, he has depression, he has anxiety, he has thoughts of suicide. I mean, I'm
sad.
It's incredible to me. And, you know, knowing that he's so deficient and, you know, you want to reach out and you want to try to help that. And this is one of the reasons why we do these little seminars that we do and bring on people that are knowledgeable, such as yourself, to be able to share this valuable information. And, you know, so when you look at something like that, you know, I guess maybe what I'll probably have to do is get some more information about how maybe each of them, what their actual lifestyle choices maybe are, whether it was a C-section, all these different things are all part of that, and the microbiome.
Yeah, Deb, I'd say that I'm not surprised he's got depression and anxiety because his DHA levels are so low. Like that brain function would be just barely functioning.
So I can't.
Sorry, right?
6.
That's his age.
Yeah.
Still, I can't even imagine this.
I bet you've got a healthy cell membrane, Donnie.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's so shocking to me, and it is not surprising.
So I lost that sound of you then, Rayleigh.
Oh, I said it's shocking to me to hear that there's somebody that age that is anxious and depressed and has thoughts of suicide.
Well, what's it going to be like for that child in the next decade if they don't intervene now? So they've actually lucky that they've actually taken these blood tests now and seen, because that can really change the trajectory of his life. Mm-hmm. And it would have been interesting to have more information about his birth, mum's birth. Often we see mothers in the last trimester of their pregnancy, if they haven't got enough DHA in their diet, their brain actually gets the pregnancy brain, and that's when the baby in the 3rd trimester is actually laying down their brain developing exponentially. So they're using every ounce of DHA that the mother has. So she goes off the boil and, you know, is a real duffer because she can't remember anything. And what can happen though, if there's really deficient levels in the mother, then neurologically that brain develops atypically. So that's where we have the autism spectrum disorders. And
Right.
it's very interesting that it's often the case when mums have had quick successions of their pregnancies, or they're carrying twins. So they've got two thieves in their tummy, and they're two little DHA thieves stealing and competing for, and they often can be affected by autism.
Wow, and especially with those deficiencies so high. And so that was, you've already answered what one of my next questions was going to be. What kind of effects could this have on a person's health over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? And if that child, you know, I hate to say this, but you know, that child may not see his 30s.
That's exactly right, Deb.
Because we're seeing these chronic diseases take
Yep.
our younger generation.
And that's what we see with our National Health and Medical Research Council here in Australia. Chronic illness is actually going up by about 12% every year in the population. And the age that it's affecting people, like your diabetes, Alzheimer's, you know, even menopause, they're marching for decades. Like they used to affect old people. Now they're affecting people from 30. Like I was talking to my sister-in-law recently, and her son-in-law had a heart attack at 32. What the hell? Fit, young, and really sick on the inside.
Wow.
Yeah, that's true. So here's another, go ahead, Ray.
No, I was just going to ask Colleen, like, so in terms of outside of like diet that's affecting our microbiome, or outside of, you know, our birthing process and what our mamas gave us, like, what are some other things that affect our microbiome? I'm curious, like you said, the last few years, like I'm super curious about how we've become more germaphobes in the last few years, right? Where we're constantly, you know, my kids walk into a classroom and they're sanitizing. Like, what other things are robbing our microbiome?
That's exactly it. We have become really scared of germs, and, you know, we throw things out if they touch the ground where we should be putting them in our mouth. I think it's so multifaceted though. Like, I think the gut, there's a lot you can do for the gut if you weren't, say you were born by a cesarean section and you were formula fed. So your gut would just be really populated from the environment, what you basically touched on the surface and put in your mouth, and then it would populate that way. So whatever the child could actually ingest. So over that person's life, if they've got a deficient gut microbiome, the best way that they can keep it really healthy is to eat a whole heap of fermented foods. So your water kefir drinks, like I know this lady who's really, she's a gut-aholic. She's just, she gave her kids water kefir and told at, like, for a special party for a birthday instead of sugary lemonade.
Love
So
that.
they got the fizzy kefir, and they thought that all their Christmases had come at once. They didn't know any better. But she just always made sourdough bread. They had kimchi. You know, there's so much you can do to incorporate into a normal diet. So there's all this stuff you can do at home.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I've learned, and I mean, it's probably pretty knowledgeable out there, but you know, one of them was the microbiome, and does everybody have the same? And your microbiome actually depends on who you've been around, and families, you know, that maybe have more strangers coming in. It's what you eat. And I was just reading here today, one recent study found that simply changing a diet altered the proportions and the identities of microbiomes in the gut within days. Ed Young has a great profile of his work over at Not Exactly Rocket Science. The results suggest that even in adults, the gut microbial ecosystem still has some pretty impressive flexibility. And culture also makes a difference, where many Japanese people have a strain of gut bacteria that digest seaweed more easily, and it's a strain that other people in other countries tend to lack.
Yeah, and that would have evolved over like centuries, those types of things, and been passed from mother to baby and in the environment. And, you know, people who grow their own veggies and perhaps leave a bit of that dirt on the veggies, you know, they're getting a nice little cocktail from the garden. So something you said then made me think I must talk about that, Deb, about the cultures. So that's right, things that can actually upset, like your gut microbiome can change within hours of even just emotional stuff can wipe out your gut microbiome because of that gut brain axis. So, 1 minute of anger can really dampen your immune system off for 24 hours, whereas 1 minute of laughter can build it up for a long time too. So it's just incredible how the emotions affect our gut microbiome as well.
Okay, so that comes me to my next question and comments
Just
here.
preempting all your questions.
You're doing an amazing job.
I swear to God, I haven't got them in front of me.
So research actually tells us that there's 7 different factors that influence our gut microbiota. And that is our diet, exposure to pathogens, age, psychological stress and anxiety, medication or drug use, tobacco use and alcohol consumption, and physical activity. So the first one there, the diet. So that's the types of food that a person consumes can have a significant impact. So how does the diet impact good gut microbiota?
Okay, so people that eat a lot of processed food, and that can be anything from white bread to cereals to muesli bars that are perceived as healthy, they're full of sugar. So even fruit is a healthy sugar, but it's full of sugar. So if you've got a diet that's full of sugar, you're going to feed all the fungi in the gut, and the fungi is going to have a party and be out of control. So those people are much more prone to candida infections. And, when you're pregnant, that's really awful because then they're prone to candida. Yeast can cause urinary tract infections and actually cause premature labor and all sorts of things. So I think you've got to eat much more bitter foods. Try not to eat processed white bread, because if you have to eat bread, eat a sourdough that's been fermented for a long time. So that's how I think, and eat as many dark green leafy vegetables because of the prebiotic fibers of in resistant starch that are found in fibrous vegetables, such as cruciferous vegetables, or your dark green leafies, things like that, because those fibers then feed a lot of the good bacteria in your gut, and it gets a chance to grow in numbers and even the other stuff out. So it's all about balance in there.
So I'm curious, Colleen, just talking about food then, how does bone broth, what does it do? Does it alkaline the stomach, or is it just so full of good micronutrients? What is the deal with bone broth? And also, I'm thinking about babies that are often given soy formula. Is that a good option, or does that increase their estrogen? I don't know.
Well, it's really marginal, the estrogen increasing with the use of soy, because looking at the Japanese people who have soy in their diet, and a lot of Chinese people, they don't seem to, so I think maybe their bodies have adapted. But I think Western people now are eating more soy, gluten-free products, and I really don't know the answer to that, Gail, but I think that we're not ready for it. And we're just not, we haven't evolved for it.
Mm-hmm.
And with soy formula for babies, as opposed to cow's milk based formula, babies can be just as allergic to soy as cow's milk. So it's just a matter of, it's not an advantage. It's just basically what the baby can tolerate. Because there are some babies that, cannot tolerate soy, rice, or cow's milk protein. And they have to have really special prescription formulas.
Can I ask a random question off this?
Yeah.
A random question. But so when I had my little guy, my last one, I was in intensive care for a bit. So they had pumped and they had given him colostrum. And then, but there was also donor mothers with donor breast milk. So he was then introduced to somebody else's microbiome. This just occurred to me.
Yep.
Is that how
He
that
would've-
would have worked?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And so
But-
is there like a likelihood of him have ever, like, I don't know. Do humans get allergic to other human milk like they would cow's milk or soy milk or that kind of thing?
They can. I mean, humans can actually get allergic to breast milk.
Oh,
So,
really? Oh, interesting.
little babies. Yeah. So
Okay.
usually those mums have to eliminate their diet to see what it is in their diet. And sometimes you just can't take everything out. So for those babies, that's a really horrible situation because the mum's willing and able to breastfeed, but the baby just can't tolerate it. But it's really, really rare, right? But yeah, your little Donnie would have received some other donor's milk, and thank God it was a human donor. Like, you know, and you didn't have to go to the formula down the formula trail, because I would advocate all the time to take a human milk over.
Yeah, we were so fortunate. They continued to pump for me, but it wasn't quite enough when I was in intensive care. And then I managed to nurse afterwards, which was pretty cool. But
You were
never
so
occurred
good.
to me that, that he was getting somebody else's microbiome in the meantime.
That's really interesting. So I want to add a little bit to this as well. So my niece was born was through surrogacy, and she actually refused the breast milk of the surrogate mother.
Oh,
She would not drink the milk.
really?
Huh.
How old was she, Deb, when she started to refuse?
Immediately. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
right. Still in the hospital. She
So she
just
wouldn't
refused.
latch?
No.
Wouldn't latch? Okay.
No.
So was it
So
a
it's
latch?
kind of interesting.
It sounds like a latching issue.
Yeah, maybe.
Was
Yeah,
she
it's
born-
interesting.
That wasn't a first time birther.
No, it wasn't.
And was she Caesared? Forceps?
No.
Vaginal birth?
Yeah.
Some babies are born with, even through vaginal birth, occasionally the babies can't latch at the breast.
Mhm.
And it's usually because of the birth process, and
Right.
it's could have locked up part of a vertebrae in her neck, and she, like, all the cranial nerves come out of there and supply the tongue, jaw, everything, face. So they often
Interesting.
can't get a vacuum. I've seen that a lot over the last 20 years as a lactation consultant.
Mhm.
Babies born by a Caesar that can't latch,
Interesting.
or forceps.
Or
Yeah.
forceps. That's interesting because my daughter was born with forceps, and that's exactly the issue we had. And now I'm finding out, like 40 years later, that that's what the issue was. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. I love these conversations because we just they're so natural and they just evolve, and we just learn so much. And that's why I value this time that we have together.
That's why I got interested in spinal flow, actually.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
And we're going to do another conversation on that too.
I
'cause
can't wait
find
to
it
talk about
fascinating.
spinal flow. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
So another one there is exposure to pathogens. So are there any other environmental factors that influence the gut microbacteria biota? So exposure to pathogens is a huge one. Go ahead.
The house. So how clean is the house? You know, some people are just so paranoid if a piece of food drops on the ground and they've got a 10-second rule to get that food off and eat it. But sometimes the dirtier the house is, or if there's a pet in the house, even better, like a dog, those kids have different microbiomes compared to people who are sterile in their house.
No, that's so funny because so my kids are raised on the farm, and you get like other kids maybe that come in from the city, and they often they get sick so much more. It didn't even occur to me, and mine are like constantly filthy. But that makes a lot of sense that maybe there's more pathogens that they've been introduced to just being out dirty.
Yeah, they've been protected by that though.
Interesting.
Absolutely. And there's actually a study that kids with a dog in the house are less likely to have asthma. So your microbiome is actually responsible for all those sorts of chronic things too. So asthma, eczema, allergies, diabetes, you name it. It's all connected.
So I should stop discouraging my grandkids from kissing their dogs. Oh, wow. Because I thought maybe that was giving them some dog dander or something, but that's a good thing.
As long as they're vaccinated, the dogs, I guess.
No.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so here's one for me. Currently, I'm traveling abroad and getting sick, as well as eating different foods. That's going to change my microbiome as well, correct?
It depends, Deb, whether anyone gives you antibiotics while you're sick.
I'm
So
not,
you're eating-
well, that's true.
Yeah, if you're just sick, you'll get over it. And eating different foods, I think, is probably putting your microbiome on a bit of notice. You know, there's new stuff coming in. Stand up. You'll either take it or you won't. No, a lot of people get. Actually, I was reading an article on this the other day. When they get, barley belly and diarrhea from traveling. So that is because we're being exposed to different strains of E. coli. So there's different strains. Like we have one strain in our, or actually we have many different strains, but if we get a foreign one, it can really cause diarrhea and vomiting. So I think the medical people say probiotics, but I think now if I was to travel, I'd just have my prebiotic because I think that just makes my microbiome the strongest. But probiotics are all very good, and occasionally you need to, if you get one that you become very, very sick with, where you're losing fluid and you're dehydrated, you might need a really strong antibiotic like azithromycin or something that I once was prescribed, and I filled the script and took it with me when I traveled through Vietnam. So I didn't get sick with our kids didn't get sick with their gut, but I cut my foot pretty badly and I used it then, which was silly. I don't think it really did a lot for my foot. Right. And that would have just unnecessarily wiped out my microbiome. So you've got to be really careful taking antibiotics, only if you really, really, really have to.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Gail, you had another question there, seeing as we're touching on pre and probiotics.
Yeah, I recall one time you mentioned, and maybe I heard this a certain way or whatever, but I thought you mentioned that if you're taking probiotics, it is absolutely essential that you take a good prebiotic. Otherwise, the probiotic is not nearly as effective. It was something to that effect. And did you say that? And what is the value behind like the probiotic or the probiotic without the prebiotic? Is it like low?
Yep. You might as well forget the probiotic if you don't take a prebiotic, because a probiotic is like a nice little group of or strains of different bacteria that you're putting in your gut to build up the microbiome. But if you put it in your gut, your bacteria could just destroy it just as quick as it gets there. But if you're having a prebiotic, you're actually feeding that probiotic that you're putting in with the prebiotic. So it's like lawn seed. Your probiotic's like your lawn seed, you sprinkle it throughout your gut, but your prebiotic is like the water and the fertilizer for that lawn seed, so that lawn seed actually has a chance to multiply and grow and then have a healthy gut.
And so is there ever a product that is a pre and a probiotic in one?
I don't think so. I think we've got a prebiotic as with Zinzino, but it's not a probiotic. I think that just grows the good bacteria that you've got.
Can you take them together, or should you take them okay.
I believe that you can, and I believe at Chemist Warehouse, which is one of our big chain chemist shops, that you can buy prebiotics on their own. But I haven't actually scoured the shelves to see if there's one that's combined. I wouldn't have a clue.
I've also heard that probiotics, a good one doesn't need to be refrigerated. Is that true, or does it depend on the probiotic?
I think it depends on the strain, Gail. I think it definitely depends on the strain. But yeah, if you can get away without having to keep them in the fridge,
Yeah.
they're probably more robust.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And the human milk, getting back to that donor milk, Ray, at least your baby would have got human milk oligosaccharides, which are special sugars that feed the microbiome. And the human milk has about 200 different strains. And it's really interesting around the world how many human milk oligosaccharides are in different populations and at different times too. So they can be quite seasonal. It's really interesting how it
That's
changes.
fascinating. I love that.
Yeah. I often refer mums to this website called Microbirth. And there's a Microbirth is a really good place to go and have a look at the human microbiome from like in little tiny babies. A lot of great information there.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was also reading about dietary fiber and polyphenols. And as we know, polyphenols are naturally occurring metabolites found in plant foods such as fruits, seeds, vegetables, tea, cocoa products, olive oil, wine. Research on the antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects of the polyphenols have been shown to increase the number of beneficial bacteria in our gut, which I find, and that also helps to reduce the growth of the potentially harmful bacteria. I find that fascinating as well. So, you know, we have the xenobiotic that we can add for the dietary fiber, and then we have the balance oil, which we're getting those extra polyphenols, as well as from our seeds, our vegetables, our teas, our cocoa products, etc. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Deb, we're so deficient in our diet with polyphenols, and it's really it's not a choice supplement, it's a must supplement, because that's what I was saying before about the food industry. They're really ripping us off because we haven't even, like, Australia is a lucky country and we're just as bad or affected as Canada and America because of the nutrient and the polyphenol levels in our fruits and veggies. Like our tomatoes are grown hydroponically and they taste like nothing. They just taste like water, you know. So imagine the nutrient value. If you can't taste it, it's not there.
Right. And you know what, that blows my mind, because you're talking about tomatoes, and I was reading a book today, and literally a jar or a can of tomato sauce has, I believe it's like 4 teaspoons of sugar added to it.
Oh, wow.
And you know, and so, you know, we're getting so much extra sugar in our diet, and you know, so and that's going to affect our bacteria in our gut as well. So I was, and in this article, sugar is 8 times as addictive as cocaine in a 2009 study. The average person consumes 23 teaspoons of sugar every day. And you know, you try to give your kid an orange juice instead of a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi, but it has just as much sugar as the soda pop does. And the other part that I found fascinating too is that the brain imaging studies, when you eat junk and processed foods, your brain looks like it's on heroin, right?
Yeah.
Like it's insane. And these are the foods that we're filling our bodies with.
Yep. And when you have some, your body wants more. So it's a go-to. It's the way the brain works. It's like a fix. It needs a sugar fix. And you know, orange juice, it's the acid in the fruit that actually strips the enamel off kids' teeth. Just like it's the sugar in those soda pop, the fizzy drinks. I love the way you guys call them all these different names.
Yes.
We call it
Dear.
soft drink. That's what we call it. Soda pop is soft drink.
Mhm.
My kids aren't
Yeah.
allowed to have it.
No, I've cut them definitely out of my diet here the last few years as well. I used to have one as a treat randomly, but definitely, but that's just it. As we learn, we pivot, and now I drink more water because I know that I don't get enough water, and it doesn't matter. I was reading again. I'm doing too much reading, guys. You guys got to stop me from reading because I'm trying to absorb all of it. But I was reading that one lady there, she was drinking up to 4 liters of water a day, and what an impact it was making on her skin, and even on her gut and her hair and her nails, and even her brain health. Like everything, it was being able to flush all those toxins, and as well as to stabilize her weight. So some of the other stressors there would be the age, your stress and anxiety. So we talk about stress and anxiety, and we know that over the last few years with the pandemic and everything surrounded that, there's got to be some pretty good studies coming out right now between the gut health that we've gone through in the last 2 years and our mental health. What do you think those studies, just randomly, what do you think those studies are going to look like coming out?
Well, I think that it's a self-perpetuating sort of circus. So stress weakens the gut, weakens the immune system, which then causes more stress. And I think our lives now are too big for our bodies. Our lives are too stressful for our bodies. And when those stresses come into our body, it can't deal with them. So it locks it away in our nervous system and in our spine so that we can still function. But it's got to go somewhere. It doesn't, if we don't get it out and deal with it, or get some, psychological care, have good diet. So it's such a multifaceted thing. You can't just have a mental health issue and go and see a psychologist and think that that's all you need. You need good diet. You need exercise. It's a panacea for, producing serotonin and all those endorphins that actually help you feel better. So I just think our lifestyle is too much for our bodies now. And I think, you have to be so onto it. You have to be a learned friend like yourself, Deb, who's reading a lot. People go through life very unconscious. They just put their head in the sand like an emu, and they just like, oh, I don't want to know if I don't know about it. But then they're the people that are getting sick and moving away from health, and we're just moving further and further away from health when we need to be working our way towards health. And, the word health, the first 4 letters in the word health are heal. We need to heal ourselves. And healing is through food, it's through social activities, it's through healthy exercise, it's through getting help when you need it, when you've got more stresses, more chemical, physical, and emotional stresses coming into your body. Go and get the help to help someone get them out of your body so that your body can function more optimally.
Absolutely. I can't wait to have this conversation with you on spinal flow. We're going to schedule that one coming
up. Segue, but we don't have time.
We don't have the time. No. So here's a question. What role does the omega-3 play with the gut?
Oh, it is so important for the immune system. So I know that you've been chatting with Mick Jordan, and as a naturopath with a science degree, he can really explain how it affects T cells in the guts. But it's every cell. The omega-3 is every single one of your 80 trillion cells. So if you've got better functioning cells, the nutrients that do come through the gut are going to make it into those cells, and you're going to be much healthier. So omega-3 is just so important. Not only for the gut, for the immune system, how it supports the immune system through the gut, but also for every cell in your body. So even if your diet is like barely has enough nutrients in it, micronutrients, if you've got enough EPA like that poor young boy hasn't, he's got no chance of the nutrients that are coming through his system of actually making their way into the cell, because his little cell membranes would be hard and stiff, and that EPA makes them fluid and all squishy so that nutrients can filter their way through, and waste products of metabolism can filter their way out. And that omega-3 is just so important for that. And it's like not I don't think it's something we should choose to take. I think we must take it. It's just like it's no longer a choice, because I don't know if you've heard about a book written recently about the Tasmanian salmon industry.
No.
I can't think of the surname of the guy, Richard somebody, who's written this book called Toxic. You can Google the book Toxic.
Mhm.
And it talks about the Australian salmon industry, and you think our salmon's grown in pristine waters in Tasmania, but these poor salmon are fed the most toxic food. They're fed they're fed chicken waste, so anything like bones, ground up chicken, which are fine, but chicken are full of chemicals in Australia anyway. But the really sad thing is that they're also fed ethoxyquin through the fish meal that comes out from South America. And ethoxyquin was invented by Monsanto in the 1950s to stop tires cracking. So this ethoxyquin is used in the fish meal to stop it exploding in the journey out to Australia. And these fish are then eating this ethoxyquin, which we are consequently eating. And this is the sad thing is, it's the people who think, oh, I eat salmon 3 times a week, I'm so healthy. They don't realize I wouldn't touch that salmon with a barge pole. It's just so toxic. And it's supposed to be a super healthy food that's full of omegas. And in fact, in this book, it actually revealed that this Australian salmon has 50% less omega-3 in it than it did 20 years ago in the tissue of the fish.
Wow.
50%.
Well, I've added that to my reading list.
Geez, poor you, Deb. A lot of reading to do, but
I
sorry,
do.
but
I do.
it's so interesting. But mainstream people don't even question all this stuff. People
Mhm.
like us 4 girls, we're questioning and asking, all the time, and finding out and following up. And I think I'm a little bit obsessed by it. My kids think I'm crazy, but they roll their eyes now when I open my mouth about another food fact or a health fact. Poor buggers. But anyway, at least, even if they're trying to shun me, that I think something will go through, some sort of message. But I tested both of my adult children, which was Lexi was 20 and Will was 22. And Lexi has a much better diet, and her obviously omega-3/6 ratio was better than Will's. His diet's terrible. In fact, he said to me the other day, and he refused to take the omegas. Can you believe that? Refused. But at 23, I can't make him now. He's nearly 23. But he said to me the other night at the dinner table, he said, Mum, your cooking's really good, but you really use too many vegetables. I laughed so hard, my side split. I said, would you like some processed bread with that?
Yeah, right. Exactly. And actually I was reading, I'm saying that phrase too much lately this evening I've been reading, but I've always been a meat eater, and I'm finding myself going more and more, not vegetarian or vegan necessarily, but more plant-based. And I'd really like the wording that I saw earlier, was that rather than being a diet of exclusion, a plant-based diet focuses on how plant foods can be added to the diet to provide health benefits. And so that's actually what my goal is now, is to start adding more in and crowd out maybe my other proteins from my chicken, like you were explaining about the different processed types of chicken, and even the red meat. And so, if we can crowd out these other foods and put more of this plant-based in, I think we're, that's what we need to do, as long as we're getting it from the right resources as well, because then we have to look at the soil, we have to look at where they're being grown, where they're being brought in from, we have to look at, whether they're being sprayed, all these different things are all these factors. But I got sidetracked there. Gail, you had one more question about the omega-3s.
I do actually, Colleen, I'm curious what you would suggest to someone who generally bloats, but then when they're taking the omega-3s, they're like, oh, I can't take them because I'm bloating all the time. So just in general, how would you respond to that type of issue?
I'd say that person has a dysbiosis of their gut, Gail, and I think that they need to get their gut right and then start taking them. But I don't know in America if you, or the Canada, have you got the omega-3 coming in capsules yet?
No.
So I've had a few people that I've shared the omega-3 with have such bad already. Their stomach is just not.
Mm-hmm.
They're not healthy enough to even take an omega-3.
Interesting. So we do actually have access to it. We can get it here. We just not readily available.
Yeah.
So you are.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Deb, just based on that book, The Plant-Based Diet, there was some research on women in menopausal women, and it showed that menopausal women really should eat a majority of a plant-based diet because it actually helps them with all their hormones and things, as well as this doctor that was talking about postmenopausal women's health. She said they need the omega-3 as well as more of a plant-based. And I've noticed myself, I gravitate towards more plant-based foods. I love it. I love vegetables, and I choose them over anything, actually, if I had to. If there's one of those nights where you don't want to cook, I'd rather just sit down to a plate of veggies, and they're so easy to prepare.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a book called How Not to Die. Write that one down. It's a beauty. And he talks about the daily dozen, and you need something like 3 serves of beans per day just for the resistant starch in the beans and the fiber in the beans. So fiber. Can't say it enough. And I think people, with a dysbiosis need to correct their gut microbiome first, and then try taking the omega-3s when they've made their gut more healthy.
That makes a lot of sense. And are you saying then that you found that people with that issue responded better to the omega-3s with the Ascent, or even over, say, the vegan formula or the Aqua X?
Oh, yeah, I had a few people taking the Aqua X that was no different for them.
Okay.
But the people I know that they've got such bad gut issues, and honestly, it is 40% of the population, that they've got to do a lot of work themselves. They've got to do all the fermented foods. They've got to have the prebiotics, the probiotics, and become healthy enough to be able to function like a normal person can. And that's to, have the omega-3s without issue.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Super.
No, and that's interesting too, that you were mentioning that, both of you, because I have been diving into that as well, and because we've had some people who are having issues with maybe the balance oil with their tummy issues, or they're finding that the product isn't, after 4 months it hasn't necessarily been working quite the way that they want it to, and a lot of that does have to do with their gut microbiome, and if that's out of balance too, you're not going to be able to bring everything else back into balance. So that moves me into my next question. How long, and I know this is a tough one because everybody's different, we're all bio-individual, but how long does it take to improve the gut microbiome if you were to follow everything that you're supposed to do?
I reckon you could see a significant difference within a month. Yep, a few weeks. In fact, I reckon even a few days it would definitely start to change straight away. Yeah. Definitely. it would be just become stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think within the month you'd have a much more healthy gut. But it's interesting. The other day I listened to a doctor being interviewed by another doctor about irritable bowel disease and how they treat it, right? And this doctor that was an expert, she was very, very good. She said she went through all the medical treatment. She said, depending on the symptoms, we'll give something for constipation, we'll give something for dyspepsia, we'll give something for this symptom, that symptom, all these different symptoms. There was another pharmaceutical that she would use. And I sort of like zoned out because I thought, oh, this is just pharmaceutical. She's just treating the symptoms. And so the doctor at the end of the interview said, well, what would you do? How would you, if there was something natural that the person could do, what would that be? She said fiber. She never mentioned it all the way through. Cellulose, fiber. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Let's give them a Band-Aid. Let's just
Yeah.
not
don't you
fix
just
the cause.
pull the person aside in the first place and say, right, you need to have at least 30 grams of fiber in your diet every day. Then we'll treat these and these symptoms will get better.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying that fiber is the only thing, but I think the immune system, the omega-3s, I think, and having the right amount of micronutrients, especially the polyphenols, that's going to make a big difference.
Gail, do you have any questions?
I do, but there's such a roundabout long thing. I'm not sure if I can even ask, but say in the case of somebody with IBS, and I do know somebody that has it, like their stomach is so sensitive that to give them more fiber, like they say it has an immediate result, like they're in the bathroom all the time. So then they hesitate to take, say, a fiber blend. So then it's like they can't take the omega and they're hesitant to take more fiber because they don't want to end up in the bathroom. But it's like, can you say, you know, persevere for 2 weeks because, you know, there is a lot coming, or?
Exactly. That's exactly it. They've got it. They do become very ginger with trying new things because they're so sensitive and they almost as though they give up.
Yeah.
Gail, I think they lose the will to keep trying different things. But I think you've got to give that Zinzino, like just have 1 jar of it at least and take it every day and then assess. The bowel will slowly heal, you know.
Mhm.
That's good advice. Thank you.
Yeah. No, and it's an amazing product.
Yeah, you couldn't
you
get
know,
it from 1 scoop, but you've got to have a whole container
Mhm.
every day.
Absolutely. And you know what, and I would go even further than that, Colleen, and I would say, you know, at least the same as the balance oil, take it for at least 4 months. I mean, I know that our gut's going to change and it can change in a matter of days, but you're also not only you changing that, but you're also trying to heal it.
And maintain it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So some may need longer than just 1 month or one jar of the xenobiotic for sure.
They should
so
try that.
Go ahead.
They should try that as a minimum though.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? It's very inexpensive compared to what's on the market. And it's definitely, I know I've seen definite benefits of it. And I know I'm down here in Mexico right now, and I take 2 scoops every day. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm not getting sick. I don't know.
Is Ken taking it as well?
He is, yes.
Good.
Yeah, we both take it. So no, it's a fabulous product.
It is so fabulous because if you try to eat the amount of cruciferous vegetables and things that you need to get those 30 grams of fiber, you can hardly, like we hardly eat that much anymore. Whereas those 2 scoops, at least you know you've got it.
Exactly.
And what you have on top of that is a bonus.
That's right. Dear. So in order for people who are looking forward towards improving their health, they have to be willing to put forth the genuine efforts on getting better themselves instead of waiting around until some health scare or motivation suddenly kicks them saying, hey, why did I wait? So it doesn't matter where you start either, whether it's making healthier food choices, working out more frequently, or listening to your gut. If we want results, you just have to start. So thank you, Colleen, for sharing your knowledge and your insight on this important topic.
Thank you.
We
you.
know that there may be more questions out there. I haven't checked Facebook in a few minutes here to see, but we're always here to help. So if there's anything else on your mind about tonight's presentation or how the Omega Revolution works in general, please do not hesitate to reach out to any of us, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions or get you in touch with somebody that that can answer the questions that maybe we can't. And yeah, is there anything you would like to say in closing, Colleen? Or,
No,
or
thank
even
you.
really?
It's been a great conversation. Thanks, girls. I've really enjoyed it. I always enjoy having a yak to you, Sheilas, over there.
I love being called a Sheila.
That's a term of endearment in Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Rayleigh, did you have anything to say in closing?
Oh, this was just so great. Thank you for taking the time out of your mid-afternoon. And I really look forward to this final flow conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be
Yeah.
exciting.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Ray.
Here.
Okay, thank you again. Take care, everybody.
See you, girls. Bye.